California Governor Gavin Newsom was at the Munich Security Conference signing cooperation agreements with Ukraine and the UK. President Trump says that's inappropriate. To dive in, we're joined by our panel, Democratic strategist Lee Neves and Republican strategist Aaron Evans. Thank you guys for coming back on. Great to have you here. Now, Newsom has been criticizing the president's foreign policy, telling leaders that Trump is temporary and California is an alternative partner to the federal government. Let's roll a clip.
This is the President of the United States of America. Call this guy out. Stop this timidity. Stop with the BS diplomacy.
Aaron, President Trump called Newsom's agreements with other countries inappropriate. What's your take on Newsom's actions with foreign leaders?
No, absolutely. It's wholly inappropriate. And I think if flip the shoe, if this had been Governor DeSantis during the Biden administration, every Democrat in America would be crying foul. And, governors are elected to run their state, not become president. And so I think at the end of the day, there's only one of those two gentlemen who was elected by the majority of Americans, and that is President Donald J. Trump. And it's also not only is it a potential violation of the Logan Act, speaking on behalf of the United States when they shouldn't, but also it jeopardizes international relations and puts our country at risk. Governor Newsom should be focused more on his failing state and all of the issues that he could focus on at home for the people who actually elected him than pretending to be president.
Lee, what's your response to all this?
I mean, look, it depends on what those agreements we're talking about. Now, if he was signing an agreement having to do with the military or even immigration, then I can see the point. Yes, Governor Newsom should not be signing those. But if it is an agreement dealing with trade, dealing with economics within the state of California, even dealing with the environment within the state of California, it's totally within his purview because he is dealing with things that happen within the state of California, and be it trade with England, trade with Ukraine, you name it. And to be perfectly honest, look, I spent a lot of time in Florida. I would hope Governor DeSantis would also go and promote trade with the state of Florida with other nations as well. Governor Newsom is doing two things. Obviously, he's the front runner for the 2028 Democratic nomination. Everyone knows that. He is portraying out there that he is the leader of the party, and also portraying that he can be a leader on the world stage, not the leader of the United States, but a leader on the world stage. It's totally within his purview and ability to do that, especially as the front runner for the 2028 nomination. He's also doing things to strengthen his state, both on the environmental side and on the economic side. And I think every governor should, within their rights, do that with any country in the world they see fit. Just, leave out North Korea and China.
I want to get to our next topic here, to the DHS shutdown, Department of Homeland Security. Congress failed to fund the department last week, but it's not impacting ICE deportation operations. Republicans and Democrats in Congress don't appear to be willing to compromise on certain issues like banning ICE officers from wearing masks to protect their identities and requiring judicial warrants to make arrests. Lee, what path can Congress take to fund the department at this point?
I mean, if I were the Republicans, I would want this to go away as fast as possible. ICE has become a huge liability for the Republicans in the midterms. Right now, what the country sees, what the general voting population sees, is an organization that is out of control, that has killed 2 people in Minnesota, that is arresting actual U.S. citizens and detaining them. And then later they're saying, oops. And all of this goes back to, I've been on here talking about it, I've been on other networks talking about it, the fact that those who have been hired in this massive buildup of ICE are unqualified and poorly trained. Instead of the 6-month training period you had, it's now 45, 50 days. You're getting people who can't pass their background checks. You're getting people who can't pass physical tests. And the Republicans should want this to go away because just last week you had a bunch of good news on the economy. Inflation has steadied. A great jobs report. Is anyone talking about that? No. Here we are talking about ICE and the fact that I think everyone agrees there needs to be reforms to ICE. At a minimum, for me, if I were a Democratic senator, I want it to go back to that 6-month training period for ICE officers, not this abbreviated 45-day period where we're getting people that clearly aren't qualified to be law enforcement officers hired and on the streets with an ICE badge.
Aaron, what do you see as the best path forward here in Congress?
Yeah, look, I think we've got to find a path forward. And at the end of the day, I would counter that, I think that this is one of those things that the Democrats really should be very careful with, because ultimately, ICE is still funded, ICE is still functional. And while they're pretending to make this about ICE, I mean, we're literally holding back the entire Department of Homeland Security, which was established after 9/11 to protect America from terror acts here in our country. And so, while we've got Democrats playing politics with the national security of our country, we need to step back and realize what's going to happen if we have an act of terror, or if we have anything that happens while DHS is defunded by Democrats who are more concerned about taking masks off of ICE agents than actually arresting criminals and getting them out of our country that were brought in at historic numbers under the Biden administration, under their watch. And so, I do think that due process is important. I do think that, obviously training is important and all of these things. But at the end of the day, Americans do understand we would not even be dealing with this if it were not for the same Democrat senators and President Joe Biden bringing in all of these illegal immigrants into our country and at mass historic numbers. And, the first presidency, I mean, you go back and you look at Obama administration, you go back and you look at the Clinton administration, this has been a bipartisan focus of having a secure country and having rules and having laws and having borders up until recent. And these are the same senators that oversaw that and allowed that to happen. And now they're shutting down our national security. I don't think it's going to end well for them.
A couple of the major sticking points that Republicans and Democrats are sticking to is masks, judicial warrants. Lee, let's get into it. Republicans argue that ICE agents shouldn't be able, they should be able to wear masks because they're being increasingly targeted and attacked with their names and addresses being posted online, not just putting themselves in danger, but also their families, unlike your average police officer. What's your response to that?
First of all, they shouldn't be attacked, period, end conversation. No law enforcement officer should be attacked. I think that should be a baseline for everyone. What I come to here is that they are literally the only law enforcement agency in the United States that wears masks. I live in Stockton, California, not exactly known as the safest place on the planet. Our police officers don't wear masks. And let me tell you, they deal with worse people on a daily basis than anyone in ICE does. So to me, that whole they need to wear masks for their own protection, it doesn't hold weight. It really doesn't. I think the masks need to come away. I would like to see the masks come away. I would like to see the body cams. But I think the most important thing, like I said earlier, I think the one thing that solves everything here, and the one thing that has caused the most problems with ICE officers, is that you do have a bunch of people out there who probably couldn't pass any other law enforcement background check, couldn't pass any other training academy, being put on the field with a badge and a gun. We need to get back to that 6 months to train them, full vetting, full physical, physical examination and passage, to have ICE officers out there who are doing the jobs that, look, everyone still wants a secure border. Everyone still wants documented, undocumented who are committing serious and violent felonies out of here. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the perception. All people see on TV and on the internet and on Instagram and Facebook is an ICE department that seems to be out of control. And a lot of that is because who are the officers on the street? We need to get back to having officers who are qualified to carry out their duties on the street.
Aaron, if you could, address the 6-month training period, and also the fact that Democrats want ICE agents to obtain judicial warrants to arrest illegal immigrants. Why are Republicans against this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when we look at the time frame with the 6 months, a lot of these guys have actually came from other agencies. They have law enforcement background first and foremost when we look at that, the quality of training that the U.S. has in place for law enforcement, for federal agencies, it is some of the best training in the world. And so I do think that 6 months is very excessive. Most of this, by the way, these are U.S. senators and Democrat leaders who have never done a ride-along, who have never rode with a local deputy, much less even know what ICE officer does on a day-by-day basis. They believe their own stories that they generate for propaganda. And so, do we have bad actors in every area of professional life and employment? Absolutely. Should they be held accountable? Absolutely. Should training be done first class? Absolutely. But at the same time, and we were talking about, again, a problem that the entire reason that the Democrats want a 6-month training period is because they know that we only have two more years left in the Trump presidency after this November. And everything is a slow roll. Everything is stopping at all costs, changing the topics, diverting. And let me go back to the masks real quick, too, because the important part on that is, we're talking about Tren de Aragua. We're talking about MS-13. We're talking about some of the, some of these violent gangs. I was actually in El Salvador a few years ago before it got much better. And literally while I was there, visiting with some people, there was a police officer that was assassinated in her home that night because they had policies that most Democrats would love for us to have here in the United States, where she couldn't take a gun home with her. And so she put her gun in her locker and she went home. But they knew who she was, and they knew she was without a gun, and they killed her in her bed. And there was open war between law enforcement and MS-13. These are the people that our brave ICE agents are fighting on a daily basis, and trying to arrest and trying to get out of our country. These are organized criminals, international funding, with international intel, and so there's big problems here, and there's big threats and big dangers. And so again, it's very easy for us to sit, as pundits and talk about all these things that need to happen, but we're asking people to do very brave jobs, going out on the front lines, fixing problems we should not have if we'd actually had government officials who didn't sell us out in the last administration, and the same Democrat senators who want to, stand on their soapbox now who didn't oversee allowing it to happen.
All right. I guess we'll be looking forward to. Please, yeah.
If I can just butt in, I live in California, for crying out loud. I don't know of any Democrat who doesn't want a law enforcement officer taking their gun home with them. I can't. And please name me one. If you say that's what we want to do, please name me one who has suggested that, and I will eat crow on live TV.
All right. Well, Lee Neves and Aaron Evans, thank you both very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.